So, Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova.
So, as I explained yesterday, the day before, usually this is where, there is sermon time, and this year, given that we have the chance, the blessing of sharing the high holidays with a colleague, a dear teacher and friend who has not only a beautiful voice, but also some good Torah in him to share with all of us. It was, I felt like it wasn't smart to prepare remarks by myself, and I invited Rabbi Surazski to come together and to have a conversation. We had actually multiple conversations leading to this conversation that we will have in public with you, so that we can exchange some ideas. And what we ended up using is an article that was going around. Rabbis before the high holidays send all kind of things. Some of that is senseless, humorless memes that they think that they are funny, but they are not. And we get a ton of those, but every now and then there is an article here or there that it's food for thought and it's interesting. So one of our colleagues who is serving a congregation in the South Florida region sent everybody an article whose title was 10 Things I Really Don't Want to Hear from My Rabbi on Rosh Hashanah. Let's say genius, the guy writing this thing, it's just so tempting to just click and see what he has to say. And again, we won't go each and every one of those steps because we want this to be like a 20-minute thing, not too long. But we put them together. And the way we will have the conversation, I will ask a couple of questions to my dear friend, and that is how we will organize the conversation. So, in this article, one of the first things that the writer says is, to the rabbis, dear rabbis, stop playing the prosecutor against the world and stop lecturing me about my bad behavior. We don't want to come to shul on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur for the rabbi to give okay? So, as we were having a conversation, we actually began thinking about what should be the role of the rabbi in general, and certainly when thinking or putting together some thoughts to be shared with his or her congregation during the high holidays. So, Rabbi, what do you think?
Shana Tova. K'tivei Chatima Tova. At the end, I can talk, not only sing. My thought when we were studying at the seminario in the 90s, I was studying in the 90s.
I was a bar mitzvah in the 90s. He's old. I'm just saying.
So one of our teachers taught us that the rabbi should be a combination of a prophet, a priest, and a scholar. Sometimes he's a prophet, sometimes he's seeking the truth, the justice. Sometimes the rabbi is a priest, he's fulfilling rituals and helping people to feel closer to the rituals. And sometimes he's a scholar, he's teaching Torah, he's teaching the correct values. What can I say? Sometimes rabbis are prophets, and I think that talking about bad behavior, not only rabbis, but also the Machzor is talking us along the high holidays about our bad behavior. But I think that always is a matter of balance. The rabbi should know when he is supposed to be a scholar and when he's supposed to be a prophet. If the rabbi is only a prophet and he's only looking for mistakes, for bad behaviors in his congregants, look, the prophets were not popular. When Jeremiah was talking, the Jerusalem was not crowded. Anybody wanted to hear Jeremiah about the destruction of Jerusalem? What? But sometimes the rabbi, I think, he cannot always look for popularity. Sometimes he must seek the truth and the justice, and in that singular occasions, he must take his prophetic side and not only the scholar and the priest. Right. That's my reaction to your question.
Nice. It's like when you are talking about the prophet, the priest, the scholar, and the key word to me is that this idea of the balancing act. Because actually, yes, if the rabbi believes him or herself to be a prophet, probably will end like most of our prophets. And it's not a nice ending, just saying. But even when you think about the prophets, because you can be, again, being a prophet is something that I don't want to be, it's not my full-time job, it's like enough with being a rabbi. But it's interesting that when you think about the prophets are not only rebuking the people. It's like the prophets also understood when to do the tochecha, the admonition, and when to do the nechama, the consolation. So it's like, and I think that rabbis need to understand that balance too. Even when we are channeling the prophetic voice of Judaism, the question is always when to do the tochecha, when to do the admonition, when to say, watch out, beware, something is not exactly right, and when to hug people who are in distress and are suffering and are in pain, which is what the prophets did. After the destruction of Jerusalem, Jeremiah doesn't say, I told you so. There is a moment of embracing and trying to come back together and build from scratch. Now, before we move to the next question, or the second topic, there is something interesting here regarding rabbis should say, sometimes they need to speak the truth. And sometimes they need to take some risks and being, not so popular. But the question is, how do you navigate? And I would love to hear if in Israel there is like here this boom of the cancel culture. Have you ever heard about that? So you say the wrong thing, you're canceled. That's it, gone. Is there anything like that in Israel? And how rabbis should navigate this very tricky
red line
between being courageous and being not very smart? And sometimes you know how it is, right?
Well, rabbis, I think, they must be very careful when they talk about politics. My first year in Ashkelon, I was for 18 years rabbi in the Ashkelon community. My first year in 2005 was the year of the disconnection from Gaza Strip. Do you remember? Yeah. So it was a topic very, very, very sensitive. In my congregation, I had some members that were pro-disconnection and anti-disconnection. And I was very proud that I have a pluralist congregation, that all the voices are heard and we still can sit together. But sometimes the rabbi, I will bring an example. I guess that Russian rabbis now, or maybe in February, we are very, very careful not to talk against Vladimir Putin and his politics. But there is a certain point that the rabbi should be a prophet. When he feels that the politics cross the red line, I think that the rabbi should be the person that must talk and say aloud what is happening here. And I'm pretty sure that everywhere the rabbis are careful, but they know that there are certain points and red lines that are crossed and they cannot be silent. They should speak aloud. I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah. Yes?
It's like, yeah, again, it's like sometimes we need to take risks and, bear the consequences of taking those risks. But actually, you jumped straight to the second point that we want to talk a little bit about. It's like this article on the 10 things that the rabbi shouldn't speak about, not in Rosh Hashanah and probably not any Shabbat, is please don't talk to me about Israel, the Holocaust, or politics. Which is interesting. Again, it's like, remember, this article is just the excuse to have the conversation. It wasn't written by Moses nor brought back from Sinai. So it's like the fact that this guy is saying you shouldn't talk about these things doesn't mean that we agree with him. We are just using him as the excuse to think about the type of issues that shape the way we see the world. And again, with Rabbi, we have this common origin. We were born and raised and we studied at the seminario in Buenos Aires, but then we both ended up living in countries that were not our home country. And so we see the world from a different perspective than, Americans here or Israelis in Israel. And so that creates opportunities to share or to do things differently from what American rabbis will do it or Israeli rabbis will do it. Although I am an American and he's an Israeli. So again, what do you think? Should rabbis use the pulpit to talk about politics, Holocaust, or Israel? Not when there is no red line. Okay, let's say, you said when there is a red line, sometimes you just need to go say something. But what as a matter of regular business? Should we talk about these issues or just say, no, this is not, you can open your paper and read whatever, you don't need me for that?
No, I think that rabbis should not talk about politics. No, politics, he can talk about democracy, but not about
partisan politics.
Parties, not about parties. But Israel, we were raised in a very Zionist community in Argentina. We studied Hebrew at a very early age, before English, and also with the Holocaust, we had in my 50, I am 52, but in the 70s.
I wasn't even around. So.
Yes. I know your rabbi when he was 14.
Yeah, that's true.
You should know.
In the 90s, when he was a student at the seminario, and I'm just.
I think that the Jewish identity should not be based on the Holocaust. But we cannot not to talk about the Holocaust. But if you overwhelmed your congregation, always of course, as a rabbi, I will not choose the topic of the Holocaust for a sermon in Yom Kippur. I would like to talk about Yom Kippur, not about the Holocaust. But I can take an example, a tale, an history from the Holocaust, but to bring another message, not to talk about the Holocaust. I think that I read the article, is wonderful how do you say it? It's food
for thought.
Food for thought. But always it's a matter of balance. It's not black or white. If you make you take all these topics in a good measure, I think that it's okay, of course.
It's okay. Let me ask you one. It's like we didn't talk about this one, but hopefully, it's worst case scenario, you are going away in like 10 days, so that's it. The risk is always with me here. So, should your congregation know who you vote for?
No.
I agree, by the way. Yeah? It's
no.
I think that all rabbis here should be independent. Then they can vote whatever they want, but it's like I think that rabbis should be wearing T-shirts of this candidate or that. At times it becomes challenging, by the way, but I agree. So it's like, because if you are painted in the colors of a party, you just alienate half of your congregation, or 20% or 70%, whatever it is. So rabbis should push and talk about civility and issues that are regarding, connected to the policies. Policies, but not partisan politics. But it would be important for the congregation not to, to always have the doubt. Even if, I can paint him in colors. But who knows? It's like, or at least, congregants can paint you in whatever colors they want, but you don't confirm nor deny.
Yes.
Okay? It's like sometimes where we stand shows from how we see the world, what we say or whatever, but rabbis shouldn't be engaging in partisan
I will
politics.
tell you something like this. I think that good sermonists will not necessarily bring a crowd of people to hear them. You can't be boring, you can't put all your congregation to sleep, and maybe they will come next year. But if you are, yes, not all the rabbis are like Rabbi Kullock, charismatic, and a good sermonist, and funny, and deep.
Do you see why I bring him?
And people is coming next year because they feel loyalty to the place and to the history of the place, his family, and on and on. But if you are a bad sermonist and you talk about issues that you shouldn't talk, that can affect people, can make them feel that they are not respected or loved, they will not come next year. So some of the issues that are brought in the article, you shouldn't talk at all. If they talk about those issues, by example, parties, I think is a terrible mistake. It's a terrible mistake because it's something that people feel is sometimes even a passion. You cannot touch the passions of the people. So in those issues should the rabbi be very careful.
Okay, last one of the questions or of the points that we wanted to bring. The article keeps saying all the time, talk to me about me. So it's like, make me feel good. I want to get high. Okay?
Are they high holidays?
It's the high holiday, so I want to get high. And the idea, talk to me about me. And, when we were discussing this among ourselves in the last few years as we were walking through the neighborhood, we were saying, isn't that what social media has been doing all along with terrible results? It's like, you go to Facebook and you see people talking to you about what you believe, so you actually think that the whole world thinks like you, And that creates a bigger gap between you and the rest of the people who are not like you, which are a bunch, but they don't know because on their feeds, they see that people are talking exactly like them. Why? Because we love to see that the world thinks like us. But that is not actually taking us to a good place. So how do we manage the expectation or the hope of, Rabbi, talk to me about me?
The rabbi should talk about topics that are relevant for the people, of course, and know something very abstract, theological, and high.
Yeah.
But it reminds me when again, in the 90s.
Yeah. Wonderful decade. It's like to be a teenager.
One of the shuls in my neighborhood published an invitation for the high holiday services, and it was like a flyer. You open the flyer, and here was written, do you know who is coming this next year for services in the high holiday at our shul? The most important person. And you open the invitation, there was a mirror. And you look at yourself. It was a marketing tool, it was wonderful, but it's very tricky. It's very tricky because I think that the most important person in the shul is not you, it's the neighbor, it's your neighbor, it's whoever is sitting beside you. When the only one, you talked about this yesterday, I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine, is we are in the time of the I, me, mine. Everyone loves to talk about himself. But the only one who opened his mouth with the I is God. When he gives the Aseret Adibrot, the 10 Commandments, the first word was I am. We should talk not only about ourselves and think about ourselves. I think that is a very one of the most important Jewish values. You should love your neighbor as yourself. But your neighbor is important here.
Comes first.
Come first, not yourself. So the relevance of the message of the topic of the Ra is important, but again, it's very tricky, what you said. I don't know, what do you think about that?
The interviewer becomes the interviewee. I think, well, you're right. I certainly believe that it's a tricky subject when people say, talk to me about me, the only thing that is important is me, or I, or mine. And I think that, somehow this is similar to what I spoke about the first evening of Rosh Hashanah. There I spoke about the paradox of Jewish religious experience for those who are not here. And I mentioned the fact that rituals, when they are effective, are not self-serving. The rituals, if they are to work in our Jewish tradition, should actually invite us to do something else that is not the ritual, but is inspired by the rituals. Here, and we mentioned this when we were talking, rabbis love when people come to them after a sermon and they say, Rabbi, I thought that you were talking to me. Okay, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that much, but it's like, they say, Rabbi, why were you talking just to me? Which is a very powerful experience. But then, the paradox of the preaching to the me, to the you, to each and every one of you individually, is that it should then take you to this center, to move away from yourself in order to do something with somebody else. The only moment when we can break this circle of the me, of the I am the only thing that matters, which is very It's the culture of our days, and in this, Judaism should be countercultural. When we can come together and share a message that you understand that is being addressed to you, that you take it and resonates, that you resonate with this, and then say, wow, now I need to do something that is not about me. It's about others, or it is about me with others. Then is when we can at least believe for a brief 3 seconds or so that we have succeeded. It's a short-lived success just because culture is always telling us otherwise. It's, we have the iPhone, we have the iPad. It's like it's all about me. And it has been very strong, and Judaism comes with a completely different message. The basic unit is a minyan. It's always about the building together and the coming together. It's not you by yourself. It's you with your family. It's you with your friends. It's you with your congregation and community and the different groups you belong to. When that happens, beautiful things occur. Part of the challenge, and maybe with this we can close, the pandemic has brought us back to that very insular, self-serving mode of survival. It's the survival of the fittest. And so for months, we were
thinking about ourselves.
It was only about us. And we were afraid of coming together. Because, it's like, whatever. It's like now we are afraid of shaking hands. It's like, again, we are moving away once again from that fear, but that was the last 2.5 years, 3 years almost. And part of what is so beautiful of seeing people coming together is that, we have a ton of things that we have to rebuild.
Let me tell you something that we didn't talk about this.
Yes.
When we prepare our
This
talk.
is live TV.
Live TV. When you have two different kind of mitzvot between man and God. When you have a mitzvah between man and God, you say a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam. We said a blessing a few minutes ago for the shofar. To the mezuzah, tefillin, talit, always a blessing. But when you have a mitzvah between man and man, you don't have a blessing. You don't say blessing for tzedakah, for comfort the mourners, or visiting. Why? Why? Because when you have a mitzvah between man and God, you are thinking about your connection with God, and you should prepare yourself, say the meditation, go to the mikveh, be clean, be pure, because you are in the focus and God is in the focus. But when you are fulfilling a mitzvah with your neighbor, he is the focus, not you. So you should go fast, without blessings, without preparation, without being ready. Go and fulfill the mitzvah.
Nice.
He is the most important, not you.
Shkoyach. And that, is the fulfillment of the mitzvah that we become a blessing. Okay, so you don't say a blessing, you become
a blessing.
The blessing. And maybe it's a wonderful, wonderful way of closing. It's like, you see, it's so nice to have him here. We say Shana Tova.
Shana
Tova to everybody. And we will continue now with our service on page 140, as we hope that the inspiration of this last part of the service for this morning will allow us to become the blessing, to be a blessing to us and to others as well.